You just pause for a moment. Continue, Rod, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, yeah, again, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Rod McRae. I'm the project manager for the Recreation Aquatic Center, and I'm here to provide you with the project update. The last update we had was on October of the year 2022. We have an agenda that will cover project information update, completed to date, that will be adding Creek and the City Parkway update, schedule update that will include some public outreach information, change order report, budget update, and what's happening the next 30 days and beyond. And we have items for other related projects update that will include the solar PV update and City Parkway and Crystal Spring intersection. Project information. As you know, we started in September 2021. We are still expecting to complete by fall of 2023, which is probably late fall of 2023, considering the rain and some of the wet soil impact that we're experiencing. As far as progress, to the end of January, we are over 52% complete, which is equivalent to what the contractor can bill us contractually. Below the two photos, aerial shots from October of 2022 and February 2023, just to show the difference from the last time we reported. Just to recap some of the field activity of the project completed and some of the challenges that we face. At the road close, working on some underground utilities, building frames and creek reconstruction. We have some unforeseen condition that we encountered. We're trying to get the October 15 deadline, and we all overcame and completed that. The month of November, while making good progress on the building, we were also focused on installing the water line, resolved some utility conflicts, dealt with some early rains in November, and allow us to proceed with the sewer installation. And we completed all the scheduled activities on that month. Month of December, while making progress in the building and after completing the deep sewer lines installation, road reconstruction away, and we were able to reopen City Parkway on December 23, 2022. And the site got tested with some heaviest rain of the year after the road was open. In January, while it is too wet to work in the natatorium area, contractor continued working inside the gymnasium area to gain more progress. In February, while still making progress inside the building, contractor started working on the HVAC, interior framing, and somehow on the offsite also the contractor was able to work on the parking lot and sidewalk grading and work around the rain and muddy side. Here's the aerial shots to show January progress. As noted, creek has been realigned, utilities installed under City Parkway. Road has been reconstructed except the final lip of asphalt. Water main at Crystal Spring has been installed, now feeding the building except the trench restoration at Crystal Spring and irrigation service line to go back from Crystal Spring to the back of the building is still to be done. We made progress on the building for the concrete slabs at the gymnasium, first and second floor, and started some of the MEP, mechanical plumbing and electrical, including some interior wall installation. There'll be more photos to show on the next slides. Just to show some of the photos back in October, on site, building continued to progress in framing, the building installation, decking, and roofing. We were working on all at the natatorium at that time and some of the under slab utilities in the gymnasium. The month of October, while working on the building, completed the creek realignment, started the road realignment, installation of water line, and bioretention. Month of November in the building, we were working on the natatorium rust protection on roof trusses, miscellaneous joint welding and gymnasium. We poured the second floor slab and working in the first floor concrete slab. Off-site work in the month of November. While working in the building, water line installation was completed, as well as the removal of the temporary water line bypass and removed the old water line that conflicted with the sewer installation. That's allowing us to proceed with the sewer work. On the same month, we experienced the first rain event of the season. The creek capacity was tested, and it was handled very easily. And after the first rain event, we completed the sewer, able to work on the roadway, curb and gutter, and begin grading the road. The month of December, given the weather condition, we were able to complete the first floor slab, the gymnasium lobby, and shared rooms, and started the mechanical, plumbing, and work on the second floor and locker rooms at the natatorium site. As far as offsite in the December, this is the busiest month we have because of the rain. Contractor had to over-excavate portion of the road to properly restore the road after the utility was installed, and proceeded with preparing the road base for asphalt paving. Paving was completed in 1 day, installed temporary lights, permanent poles, and temporary striping, and opened the road on December 23rd, 2022. The last photo was taken on the heaviest rain of the day, of the year actually, and that was on December 31st, 2022. At that time, we had some isolated flooding and on a newly constructed road due to some road temporary condition. January, with the weather condition, contractor continued some of the interior work, gymnasium wall framing, fire sprinkler, and plumbing at the natatorium, while trying to continue working on the roof truss rust-proofing treatment. Creek update. Photos on the left illustrate the creek, the road condition during the rain events before and after the creek and road was realigned. So the bottom left photo illustrates the effect of the heaviest rain of the year on the newly realigned reconstructed road and creek. The two aerial images on the right were part of the hydraulic studies and was considered in the design of the creek and the road in coordination with the design of the building. The precondition images is how creek and the road typically overwhelmed with a heavy rain, like the photo on the left on the year 2021. And the post condition is how the creek anticipated to react to such rain events, which is illustrated in the bottom photo on the left. The amount of rain immediately after the road was open was the heaviest of the year 2022. The post-project conditions confirmed how the reconstructed creek was anticipated to react. The stormwater was contained within the wider creek channel. It is also anticipated that it will reduce overbank inundation during the 100-year storm event with the newly constructed creek road within the project limits. The way it is built, we don't expect the water to overflow out the roadway within the project limits. And this leads me to the next slide of our presentation, which is the City Parkway update. As I mentioned, the City Parkway was reopened in the afternoon of December 23, 2022, thanks to the contractor who really worked hard on getting it done through the rain, and also thanks to the public who has their patience and cooperation while working on it. There will be closure to accommodate some of the construction activity for safety purposes. There will be changeable message board that will be used to notify the public for those closure, which is probably just a day here, a day there on some of the months. The two middle photos are to illustrate the improvement on the newly constructed City Parkway. The precondition shows you we have 24 feet wide road between the existing parking lot and the edge of the gutter. The parking on both sides are also existed on both sides of the road. Parking, it will be limiting the closing Parking limited during the storm event as well. When there's storm event, parking will be limited. Creek gutter reduces road within the during. Creek gutter reduces the road within. Sorry, the creek gutter reduce road width during storm events, as you can see in the photo below. Post condition, the way it is built now, we have 22 feet wide of curb to curb distances. That's to accommodate the new sidewalk on one side, and we have all the parking lot combined on one side. The creek is now relocated on one side of the road. The road width and alignment are now constructed for pedestrian safety and within the environmental limitation. Just to sum up some of the critical activities again to what was completed in the past 4 months or 5 months. For the building, we have all the steel framing and roof trusses done. We got the roof decking, underslab utilities, fire sprinkler and mechanical hangers. Some of the plumbing work on the restroom and showers are done. We got the first and second floor of the gymnasium floor. It's been poured. Started the second floor and HVAC, including the interior framing. Offsite, you can see we have done the creek modification, enlargement, as well as the extension. Sewer and water main at City Parkway is done. Water main at Crystal Spring is now completed. Removal of temporary water bypass done. Storm drainage system on City Parkway is completed. City Parkway is now reconstructed. City Parkway was reopened, being closed again for some construction activities. We started uphauling some of the surplus soil, and we started grading the parking lot, as you can see on some other photos coming up. Schedule update. Most of the off-site related area has been completed, except parking lot that we will continue to work on through the winter months. Rain impacted our overall schedule by a few weeks that we hope we can recover. The construction crew will be focusing on working inside the building, mainly in the gymnasium side, and work on the pool as much as weather will allow us to continue the rust proofing of the roof trusses. 1A, basically, we will be doing some clearing of the site. 1B, we will be focusing on constructing the pool once we get the break. We are doing some of it right now. On 1C, we'll continue to work on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, exterior framing, sheeting, and roofing. 2A, 2B, 2C, and 3 are mostly done, except landscaping, City Parkway, Pinal Lip, as well as Crystal Spring trench restoration and irrigation services, which will be done in spring. Number 4 activity, which is the parking lot, we'll be clearing the site to work on the truss enclosure, generator, gas, and electric work. And you will see some more work inside and outside the building as we find opportunity on this type of weather. Public outreach. Contractors doing a great job on keeping the site clean and safe, including monitoring traffic and impact to neighbor. Project website is regularly updated. Portable changeable message boards will be used for future road closures. Announcement. Detour signs will be placed as needed. We'll continue to communicate with the Google navigation system as needed. Field contact numbers are available on all project signs and city website. Daily on-site representative is available at the trailer office. Calls and emails are being answered and addressed. Communication with the PD and fire department is being done as needed as well. Next slide is the change order update. To date, we have an approved change order of $2,095,714 and change. We completed $1,946,678 of that to date. 35.13% is basically unforeseen. 45% is resolutions of discrepancy. 7.45% is public safety and convenience. And about 12% is owner requests and value engineering credit costs. Unforeseen and unknown is mostly disposal of contaminated soil that we continue to encounter on new excavation. Contaminated soil had to be disposed in Class 2 dump due to presence of high level of petroleum and pesticide. Public safety and convenience related includes some of the tree removal that we did earlier, some sidewalk installation, the disorder way, and disposal of hazardous concrete. 45% is coming from RFI, request for information, when we piece together that the intent of the design, considering constructability and maintainability of the building, to include mechanical, plumbing, electrical, foundation system, etc. Changes and addition and adjustment had to be implemented to accommodate changes to meet code, latest seismic load requirements. Project budget update. We are still operating to the City Council approved budget of $60,540,228. We have spent to date $33,952,239.66. That's about 56% of all the total budget. That's included payment to the contractor, consultant, and submitted and approved recommended for payment invoices. The total construction phase expenses to date is $27,154,855. The approved budget in this presentation is broken down into three categories. We have the soft costs, construction costs, and the project contingency. The blue represent the pre-construction phase expenses, orange is the construction phase expenses, and green is the remaining balance. Soft costs included design fees, project management fees, construction management, permit fees, environmental services, and other project-related tasks and project costs, which were about 68.60% if you combine 48.14 plus 20.46. Majority of the expenses are pre-construction related, which is 48%. Construction phase costs, construction phase soft cost is about 20.46%. Construction expenses cost is 52.18% spent, or that means completed. And the project contingency cost is about 52.86% spent. Having said all of that, we still have a balance of 47.14 in contingency. This is considering the additional tree removal of 201,600 that was adopted by the City Council on January 24. This is a tree removal at Crystal Spring. With the current contingency balance, considering what we can foresee at this point, we believe we still have a good contingency balance to move forward and finish the project. And we are aiming at that to complete the project within the budget unless some circumstances arose that we can't control. So what's happening the next 30 days and beyond? So at natatorium, we'll focus on underslab utilities around the pool with minimal moisture. Roof rust proofing can proceed while working on the underslab utilities and in order to get started on the pool construction. At the gymnasium area, we'll continue with our mechanical and electrical plumbing. At the second floor, continue with the interior wall framing, HVAC, ductwork installation. Weather holes scaffolding will be erected to start installing exterior walls. You might see that in the next few weeks. What's happening in the next 30 days and beyond off-site? This is the overview of the entire project on-site and off-site. While working on the building, crew will work on storm, water management, parking lot, sidewalk grading, truss enclosure, pedestrian bridge. We might see those two bridges that's going to be crossing the creek. PG&E transformer pad, PG&E gas lines. Once we have the opportunity, work on the creek bank restoration and landscaping. Once weather and ground becomes workable, we'll get going with that as well. Other project-related updates start with the solar PV. As you know, the building is designed and constructed to receive solar PV panels and to be funded through a PPA agreement with PCE that the council adopted the resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a PPA with PCE. PCE has a contract with equipment providers. The draft PPA was reviewed, submitted, and finally reviewed, is now currently being executed in the city. Hoping the next update for this topic will be the installation of the solar panel. The last topic is the Crystal Spring Oak Street City Parkway intersection improvement project. Currently, the designer is finalizing the design, specs, and estimates. We hope to advertise for bid by April 2023. Award construction sometime in May, June timeframe of 2023, and begin construction July 2023, so we can closely coordinate some of the work at the RAC project. This time we now reach the last topic and the bottom of this topic, and this ends my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Rod, for the presentation and information and the update. We're going to turn it to colleagues for questions. Rod, one thing, before I open it to my colleagues, is one thing that I'll always hear from folks is the road is very narrow. So it's not the first time that opening or that road has been changed. I've heard people concerned about can the truck get through? Is that going to be the length and the width of that of the roadway through the park?
Yes, that's the final width of the roadway. We have 22 feet of the roadway at this time, the way it's built. That can accommodate the regular truck or vehicle that goes through it. Yep.
Mayor, if you can, I can expound upon that answer.
Yes, please, City Manager. And again, the rationale for it, which I know you'll go into, which was to slow people down, but City Manager, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Javon Grogan, City Manager. So yes, a fire truck can pass through that roadway. We've had that question as well. It is important for the community to note that the redesign of the roadway was purposeful. We have had a speeding problem on City Parkway, and in the redesign, one of the best ways any traffic engineer will tell you to slow down the road is to both narrow it and curve it, and we did both. And we are hopeful that that will lower the speed on that roadway so we do not have to put in speed bumps, but that may be a next step if speeds are not slowed down. In addition, there were a number of infrastructure changes to the park, one of which was moving the parking from adjacent to the roadway, actually protected more on the northern side adjacent to the building. All of that configuration actually led into why the road was narrowed too. And so it was really a combination of factors, both the reconfiguration of the physical infrastructure, but also a purposeful effort to reduce speeds on that roadway that goes through a city park. It is a very actively used roadway in the middle of our beautiful city park.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And just for the community too, I mean, the roadway has gone through transformation. It used to be no red zones, then it became all red zones, then they were handicapped, and then they were moved for the site for the crosswalk. There then was a yellow zone added. There was a zone for a police vehicle. So things have evolved for those of us who have been in this community. So just as with new things, things get modified a little bit too. And so thank you, City Manager. Other colleagues for questions at this time? Not seeing any. Are there any members of the public that are here present or on Zoom?
I have no virtual hands raised and no speaker cards.
Thank you very much. So Rod, thank you very much for the presentation and your time and the update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Next, we'll move on to consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented by an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There will be a single public comment period for all items in this section unless a council member requests to pull an item for a separate vote. Are there any council members that wish an item for a separate vote? Seeing none, Are there any items that a council member has a question or would like to make a comment on? Hearing and seeing none. For items, for the entire consent, is there any action by the body?
Move to approve.
Oh,
Second.
thank you. And the Vice Mayor was, thank you, keeping me on. So we do have a motion from Salazar, seconded from Alvarez. However, as reminded, we do need to open it for public comment, as I said I would do. So are there any members of the public, both here or via Zoom, that would like to say anything on consent?
I have no virtual hands raised and no speaker cards.
Thank you very much. We again had a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Yes.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. That was unanimous. With that, we'll move on to our public hearing.
Item 6A, public hearing. Introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of an ordinance of the City of San Bruno amending Title III, Revenue and Finance of the Municipal Code to increase the tax imposed on cannabis businesses.
Thank you. At this time, we'll turn it over to the Assistant City Manager.
Good evening. Sorry, to make sure the video is correct. And can you adjust your video over there a little bit? Your camera? Yeah, that's good. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. This is a public hearing on the cannabis tax increase, and I want to back way up to move forward, but this item first came up at a public hearing back in October. It was a very discreet request just to consider the tax as the only item before you tonight, which is a public hearing for introduction of the ordinance to change one very discreet thing. But with that, I'll also make the announcement that the other cannabis items are proceeding, are tentatively scheduled for Planning Commission meeting on February 21st. So that will be a separate item that will come to you in the future. But with that, I'll turn it over to Eliseo Amaya, who's the city's assistant planner, who's been working very hard behind the scenes on our cannabis regulations and is making his first presentation tonight. And then you have Peter Gilly, the city's community and economic development director, can answer any questions, as can I, Darcy Smith, assistant city manager.
Welcome, and thank you for being here, and please proceed.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and council members. As Darcy stated, I'm Eliseo Amaya, one of the city's assistant planners, and I will be presenting item 6A on the agenda. This item is a proposal to amend Title III of the Municipal Code to increase the cannabis tax. So for the presentation agenda, we will start off with the objective, followed by the background. And from there, I will introduce the proposed ordinance. For items 4 and 5, staff has prepared some graphic diagrams that illustrate the difference in cannabis tax rates for San Bruno. And I will end the presentation with the recommended action. And at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, we will open the floor for you to ask any questions you have. So as listed in the staff report, the objective of this item is to hold a hearing to introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of the ordinance of the City of San Bruno amending Title III of the Municipal Code to increase the tax imposed on cannabis businesses. So let's get into the background of the cannabis tax rate. In November 2020, San Bruno voters approved a ballot measure imposing up to 10% of the gross revenues of any commercial cannabis activity that the city ultimately allows. This tax is in addition to the general business license tax imposed by the city. It's important to note that the City Council can adopt a lower tax rate without requiring voter approval, but an increase above 10% would require voter approval. On October 11th, 2022, the City Council adopted an ordinance to permit and regulate cannabis businesses in the city. Among cannabis regulations in the ordinance was a provision to set the cannabis business tax rate to 5% of gross receipts. During the ordinance adoption, the City Council directed staff to come back at a later date with an amendment to increase the tax rate to 6%. And pursuant to government code requirements, the City Council must consider the proposed tax increase at a public meeting and at a subsequent public hearing following published notice for 3 weeks. The notice was published on December 9th, 16th, and the 23rd of 2022, and a public meeting was held on January 24th of this year. So I will now proceed to the cannabis tax in San Bruno. As you are aware, the proposed ordinance is to increase the tax imposed on cannabis businesses from 5% to 6%. Now, there's no immediate fiscal impact from the adoption of the ordinance. However, should cannabis businesses be permitted in the city of San Bruno, for future revenue to the city from those cannabis businesses will increase by 1%. Now, staff cannot make a revenue projection at this time because it depends on the number of cannabis businesses and their locations. As you are aware, the city is currently revising the commercial cannabis business ordinance to reduce the number of allowed cannabis businesses. That said, staff has decided to prepare the following tables for council that showcase how a 1% increase to the tax rate will alter the total tax amount and the tax remitted to San Bruno. So, as described in attachment 2, the sample scenario is if someone purchased $35 at a commercial cannabis retailer. The table here shows that when a cannabis good is purchased, there are 3 taxes charged in the calculation. The first is the San Bruno cannabis business tax, followed by the sales tax, which is 9.87%, and lastly, the state excise tax, which is 15%. So when the cannabis business tax is 5%, the total tax for a $35 purchase is $11.44. That represents about 32.7% of the initial $35 purchase. The ground total comes out to $46.44. On the other hand, when the cannabis business tax is 6%, the total tax for a $35 purchase is $11.88. That represents 33.9% of the initial $35 purchase. And the ground total comes out to $46.88. That is a difference of 44 cents in increase. Now for total tax remitted to San Bruno, the total tax is determined by the following tax structure. The local Bradley Burns, which is 1% sales tax. Measure G, which is 0.5% transaction and use tax. And lastly, the San Bruno cannabis business tax. When the cannabis business tax is 5%, the total tax remitted to San Bruno for a $35 purchase is $2.36. That represents 6.7% of the initial $35 purchase. On the contrary, when the cannabis business tax is 6%, the total tax remitted to San Bruno is $2.71. That is a 35-cent difference. So, staff recommends council to introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of the ordinance of the City of San Bruno amending Title III of the Municipal Code to increase the tax imposed on cannabis businesses. If the council decides to take action to introduce the ordinance tonight, the next step would be to adopt the ordinance at the next regular city council meeting, which is on February 28th, 2023. And that is it for my presentation. If you guys have any questions, we are here to answer them.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Did a good job. Appreciate it. Any questions from colleagues on the presentation? Seeing and hearing none, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public here or via Zoom that would like to speak on this topic?
I have no virtual hands raised, and I have no speaker cards.
If there's anybody here, just raise your hand. Yes, we have a speaker. Ms. Blanco, if you please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members, City Manager, and everyone here and everyone watching at home. Happy Valentine's Day. So my name is Jennifer Blanco, and I am one of the trustees for San Bruno Park School District. And I spoke at the last meeting when you all were revisiting on decreasing the amount of dispensaries here in our city. I'm going to assume that you all already found out that there was a burglary in Pacifica. 3 people were arrested. 1 was a juvenile, 1 was from Stockton, 1 was from Oakland. And so I'm just going to reiterate my concern with having cannabis dispensaries here in our community, as it's going to be bringing crime to our city. In regards to the funding source going to be generated, because it seems like this is what we're really focused on and not really the health of our kids, of our community members. So on page 94 on the document, it's Proposition 64, marijuana legalization, the initiative statute that was prepared by the State Attorney General. On page 94, it talks about the allocation of certain state tax revenues. And I did receive an email from Jennifer today, thank you for that. But it said in the email that the concern I brought forth before you all the last time I came to speak, that information had yet to be generated. But as I see here and read here about the allocation, my concern is about the funding that is going to be, taxes that's going to be generated. And from what I read here, that 60% for youth programs, including substance use disorder, education, prevention, and treatment, 20% to clean up and prevent environmental damage resulting from the illegal growing of marijuana, 20% for, 1, programs designed to reduce driving under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs, and 2, a grant program designed to reduce any potential negative impacts on public health or safety resulting from the measure. So from what I understand, and I'm not sure, and I'm hoping that there might be some clarification here, if not now, maybe in an email in the future, that the taxes that are going to be generated from here and the overflow or the that's not kept here locally, that gets moved forward to the state and put into the California Marijuana Tax Fund, it seems like there are dollars to implement programs, education programs for prevention and or intervention. And my concern is, I don't know if this is going to be talked about tonight. I haven't heard anything about any kind of education program that we're going to be implementing in our city. I know our schools are doing terrible jobs in prevention and intervention for our kids. We have kids currently who are addicted to vaping. And that's a huge concern for myself, not only as a mother, but as a trustee for the San Bruno Park School District. And what concerns me about this grab for this money is that it says that there's a grant program. And so my question here is, don't expect it to be answered tonight, are we going to be moving forward to applying for these grants? Or are we just going to be requesting these dollars from the state so we can bring programs to our community? And that's what I came here to say tonight, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there any other virtual hands or members in the public?
There are not.
Okay, this is our last call because this is a public hearing. Once we close the public hearing, we'll not be going back. Seeing and hearing none, I ask for a motion and a second from council, please.
Move to close the public hearing. Second.
Motion Hamilton, seconded Salazar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Now we'll bring it back to council for any other further discussion, deliberation, and/or action. Vice Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7A as read by the city clerk.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion, Vice Mayor Hamilton, seconded Councilmember Salazar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Passes unanimously. With that, we'll move on to conduct of business.
Item 7A, receive report and confirm appointment of city council members to city council subcommittees.
And then we'll turn that over to our city manager to start, please.
Thank you, Mayor Medina, members of the City Council, and the public watching at home. Again, my name is Javon Grogan, City Manager. I will provide a brief oral report tonight, and I am doing that because our city clerk is on vacation. And so the item before you, City Council, is a report where you will receive information and confirm appointments of city council members to your various subcommittees. As a reminder, under the Brown Act, the city council may establish subcommittees consisting of less than a quorum of the full city council to review and discuss city business in two ways, and there are really two types of committees. The first one, and those are the bodies that we have before you tonight, are temporary advisory subcommittees, commonly referred to as ad hoc committees. These committees may be established to serve a limited purpose and must be reauthorized every 12 months. Because these temporary committees do not have a set meeting time and they are limited in duration, state law does not require that they follow the Brown Act requirements for public notice. Sometimes it is important to note that staff support is required for ad hoc committees. However, that may vary significantly depending on the scope, objectives, and meeting frequency of the ad hoc body. Some ad hoc committees can accomplish their objectives with little to no staff support. However, some bodies may require significant staff support. The next type of body that's authorized by state law is what's commonly referred to as a standing committee. A standing committee does have to follow the Brown Act open meeting requirements, and it has a subject matter jurisdiction, a continuing subject matter jurisdiction. These committees, as opposed to ad hoc committees, typically require more staff support, as standing committees have continuing purview over a specific subject matter and an ongoing need for staff to provide policy analysis and as well as administrative support for the body. As per the San Bruno Municipal Code, the mayor makes all appointments to and removals from commissions, boards, and committees subject to approval by the full city council. In preparation of tonight, staff did discuss a number of ad hoc bodies with the mayor, and there are three that are before you from the mayor. One is a recreation and what we call RAC, our Recreation and Aquatic Center Advisory Committee, really limited in scope, specific to the construction of our new RAC facility that you received an update on tonight. A quarterly homeless committee that had been a prior ad hoc, and I know that there may be some discussions tonight about potentially keeping that or letting that committee sunset and accomplishing those goals in a different direction, as well as a new recommendation for a cybersecurity ad hoc body. As noted in the staff report, there are a number of other ad hoc committees that are sunsetting or anticipated to sunset. That is the Clean San Bruno Action Committee, the Downtown Committee, the Heart Committee, the Open Space Parks and Recreation Facility Planning Committee related to the former Crestmore High School redevelopment site, the San Bruno Park School District and City Executive Committee, and the San Bruno School Roundtable. Should the City Council desire to reactivate any of the aforementioned committees, that can be accomplished at tonight's meeting through a majority vote of the City Council. In addition, the City Council may wish to re-examine the need for such committees and or the structure of those committees during your strong governance study session that is planned for Q2 or Q3 in calendar year 2023 this year. Additionally, as noted in the staff report, at your January 10th meeting of this year, the City Council directed staff to examine the reestablishment of the former Beautification Task Force. A little background on that: prior to 2020, the Beautification Task Force included one council member, supported by various community volunteers, at one point more than 14 regular volunteers. Together with the council member, the volunteers supported various community aesthetic and cleanup efforts. For example, the task force helped to organize residents and businesses to participate in the city's annual Operation Clean Sweep Day, and the committee supported and issued beautification awards for residential and commercial facade and landscape improvements. As noted in the staff report, I will not read it, but there was a description of duties as well as a mission statement for the prior beautification committee. And so should the City Council elect to reestablish the Beautification Task Force, staff has a couple recommendations. One, staff recommends that the task force be comprised of 2 members of the City Council, and that the task force obtain specific direction from the City Council on all programs and activities, including but not limited to the establishment of volunteer programs and prior authorization from the City Council on any grant applications. Additionally, consistent with your City Council policies and procedures, should the City Council staff should provide the City Council with an assessment of the required staff support and the operational impact of any proposed task force programs or activities. At this point, because we do not know those programs or activities, we can't appropriately assess if and how much staff support is needed. It is also important to note that while the Beautification Task Force had a description of duties and a mission statement on the city's website, the city has not routinely established a written scope and clear objectives for its ad hoc committees and standing bodies. Going forward, staff recommends that the City Council take a formal action to approve a scope and objectives for each committee. This will document the rationale for the committee, assist the public and staff to understand the role of the committee, as well as provide parameters to ensure that the City Council has authorized the activity and policy areas covered by the committee. Also important to note, should the City Council establish the Beautification Task Force, that would, if it was established similar to the prior one, would actually be a standing committee. And so we are recommending that if you desire to reestablish the Beautification Task Force, you first set up an ad hoc body of 2 council members that can research, study, develop recommendations on what that committee would do, and then come back to the City Council for confirmation on the scope of the committee. But it would be a standing committee as per Brown Act rules, because it would have a continuing subject matter jurisdiction. And so that is a change in how the prior one was established. And so with that, I will conclude the verbal staff report. I've recapped the salient points of the staff report that is in your packet, and we are here to support the City Council with your deliberations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, City Manager. With that, just for some explanation, as an example to what the City Manager was saying, when we had talked, I had thought of technology ad hoc, and correct, it was, let's define it, let's keep it so we know exactly what we're doing. Technology is very vast. What does that mean? How does staff gauge what that would do as far as time commitments, when it's really, could it mean about how many computers are in the city, or does it mean something else? So that's why it's specified as cybersecurity, which I think is an important factor, very critical. And today, we hear it on the news all the time. And so I think that is something, and as a ad hoc form, 2 members of the council can meet with staff and look into that matter. And if something needs to come back, staff can best direct that. Go ahead.
Absolutely, Mayor. Important to note that cybersecurity could be a continuing subject matter jurisdiction, And so the ad hoc for that committee would really have a limited scope, as I understand it, to really almost do a health checkup, meet with
Yes.
staff, and then return to the city council with any recommendations. But it wouldn't have a continuing sort of
Correct.
ongoing look at.
Thank you for the, yes, and that's why the ad hoc and very specified, and it could be about how much are we spending on the security, is that viable, is that enough, et cetera. It's listed in the staff report, but I'm asking Councilmember Salazar if he would serve on it due to his background, and I'm asking if the Vice Mayor Hamilton would serve on it as well.
Yes, I would.
Thank you. On the homeless, I wanted to talk about that because we had probably about 3 meetings a year, what it entails. For those that have not sat in it, you had 2 council members, you may have the supervisor or a staff member, Life Moves, PD, Merchant, et cetera. Obviously, what has been helpful is that in that we're hearing from Life Moves real situations, whether they're positive, whether they're unfortunate, and it's very candid talk. Obviously, with the standing committee, if it's going to continue, then that would be open, and then therefore that information may be limited because you can't really give about cases and things that are specifics on individuals for obvious reasons. So what can be done is we can have staff meet as they feel is needed, because obviously we've concurred we don't want to meet just to meet, and they can assess and come up with things. If something reaches a level, or there's funding mechanisms, or something that staff feels we need to focus on, then they can ask for an ad hoc committee for a very specific thing, but that still could open it up to have to be Brown Act and with a standing element to it. That's my suggestion at this time. There has been no meeting this year, but that's my suggestion. Why don't we take them one at a time? Excuse me. Does anybody have a different perspective or thought on the homeless? That would be staff meeting and conversing and bringing forward if there was an item that we need to be updated on, and or if there was an ad hoc, for example, if it was going back and we needed to ask for Measure K funds again for another hot caseworker, then maybe their ad hoc committee needs to come together. Any thoughts? Or are we okay with that for now? Oh, please, Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The importance of the ad hoc committee is high. However, I don't know if it's really the best usage of our time, that perhaps having staff provide a written report on what's happening, because honestly, there's a lot of work behind it, yet we're not able to really do too much other than receive that report. Currently, there are a number of homeless encampments around town, and there are some that individuals that I've received complaints about. Probably it's a little bit more in people's face than we're used to. And the answer to the question of city, what are you doing about it? It's very difficult, that there's a limited amount of what we can actually do than to continue to offer services. So I think it would be my preference that council would receive a report about the contacts, the locations, but to actually meet is probably not the best use of our time and staff's time to set up that meeting, because in the last year, we've had these meetings, and there are people from Supervisor Pine's office. There is this a lot of time, but is it really being the most efficient use of our time to receive that information? So I do appreciate that we're trying to do something with this committee, but is it really being effective?
Well, and I think to add, because Councilmember Medina and I have been in these meetings, is really a person from the community, them being open, would come saying, so what are you going to do now? I'm here, now tell me, and this body is really not designed, it was to hear the data, hear the update, have an assessment community-wide at a very high level. But it is not a group that is there to, or tasks, or has the authority or the ability to make changes to state and other regulations. So that's why I was thinking, like you said, and even if staff doesn't want, I mean, there can be some information to try to minimize that burden. Or not, it's not a burden, but that task of just coming together for that. City Manager, any thoughts? Or no?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I certainly think that staff can accomplish the objective of providing council with a high-level report a few times a year, whether that's quarterly or some other basis. And I do know that staff will continue to meet with Life Moves as well as individuals from the County Human Services Department, because those are very good operational check-ins, and I do believe we can structure a report that comes out of that. I heard Councilmember Medina say a written report. How I want to sort of operationalize that is less paragraphs where, you know, someone's not really writing a staff report, but what they're really writing is metrics and an update to provide council with a information on really the work that's happening out on the street. So I certainly think that we can effectuate that.
I think you did an excellent job and hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
To the chair.
Councilmember Salazar.
So in my experience with those meetings, I say that there is a lot of value in the conversations that came out of the meetings I attended, in that, you know, it's not, dealing with homelessness is not a simple problem. And we are partnering with a lot of agencies. What I saw in the meetings I attended, that there was a lot of turnover in staff at the other agencies, and this was an opportunity for them to sort of reset and understand what San Bruno's unique issues are, and everybody is there at the table sort of hearing this conversation. People are contributing from their standpoint, and you know, we hear from people that are on the ground, we hear from the people that are coordinating the programs at a county level, and I think it is really important for everybody to stay on the same page. I'm concerned that if we have several conversations with each of the parties, that the message, that holistic message doesn't get across to all of the agencies. So I do think there is some value. I don't know that an elected person needs to sit in there, but I do think that there is value in those organizations all coming together and talking openly about what resources they have available and how those are actually impacting our community here. So I would be open to letting staff run with it. I'd like to see it happen at least once a year, and you know, what comes out of it, if we could just get a summary that, you know, the meeting happened, who attended, and any interesting things that came out of that.
Councilmember Salazar, I absolutely agree, and I know staff does, and we would have meetings probably more frequently than once a year, and I think we're all looking at in-person meetings more, and I agree, it has always been valuable to invite Life Moves as well as county human services personnel to San Bruno to talk about that, and our police department that assigns a community services officer would be responsible for convening those groups to have a meeting in San Bruno, and I think following that meeting, we can provide the report that we're talking about.
Thank you. Going to the Recreation Aquatic Center, the modification to the name is because, in essence, once the facility is complete, that sunsets. So it's to be clear and concise again that the expectation is it doesn't continue on. Once that building is open, they cease, and that committee goes away. And so that's just, again, modification, so it's clear to everybody that's on the body that doesn't have that expectation. On the beautification, that was something that was brought up at a prior meeting that everybody seemed, from my understanding, felt yes, that was something. We had talked, and I agree with the city manager. I think the first step is that it needs to just have I'll call it a brainstorming session. It comes back to this body because you have to start to figure out, how are you appointing people? Are you appointing people? Going back to the historical perspective of all that's been, I've got all the documentation from former Vice Mayor and Councilmember Irene O'Connell. I've had to work those in various capacities. So of course, I'd like to ask Councilmember Alvarez, because this was your passion to bring it back. I'm willing to help and support you with the historical perspective. It's going to come back to this council to add, delete, come up with the game plan and be on board with it. And then the staff can then take from council what is viable. So if 12 things come back and we want 10 and 10 ideas, and they're saying it's not realistic, then we can all do that as a team. But again, it would just be a brainstorming session too. It would be totally an ad hoc, no body, no task force at this point. Once it comes back to the council, they will vote and establish a task force, and then we can have council members serve on that. Does that seem okay for now? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mark. That was it on that, but let me open up for any other questions or comments by colleagues, because you've had to listen to me. Councilmember Medina.
Great, thank you. So just for clarity, once the Recreation and Aquatic Center is open, then the Park and Rec would be the body that would be handling people coming and asking questions about the pool or whatever it is. So it's just a transfer of that public interaction. So it's built, and then it goes to Park and Rec.
That would be my understanding. The answer
Okay,
is yes.
all right,
I'm gonna-
fantastic.
But yes.
Excellent, thank you.
No, thank you. Good question. Any other comments or questions at this time? Let's see if there's any members of the public that wish to speak on this topic.
I have no virtual hands up and no speaker cards.
Okay, on the items, and of course, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we went through the proposed committees, and because the downtown committee is on the agenda, that is one of the, I sent an email on Thursday to the city clerk and the city manager to add committees, and maybe some other, it just didn't get into this report, which the report says it was at this time that they weren't included. So maybe I turned it in too late, but I'm interested in continuing with the Downtown Improvement Committee. I would like to hear about a final report out on the Heart Committee. Did we achieve what we were trying to do there? Is that business done? I thought it was a really good thing to have, but nonetheless. And there are two other things that are not in this staff report, so I could bring those up now to be discussed later, or what's the best way to proceed?
Council comment?
City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Medina. I think that this agenda item is stated to really be appointments to existing subcommittees. So if you're looking to establish new committees in the future, I think that's something you'd request to come back as a future agenda item.
Totally understand that, but I could mention them currently, because we're not going to take any action on it, on these proposed committees.
Right, I think you can discuss the different committees that you have or
Right.
propose to do
Okay.
in the future and
Right.
ask to have those come back in the future.
Right, I always want to stay within, the rules. So if, Mr. Mayor, if I can proceed.
Please.
So continuing with the Downtown Improvement Committee, which we could vote on tonight, I think there's a lot of work that has been done and that continues to need to be done there. The one that I propose is something that used to be here in San Bruno. It was the Surface Infrastructure Committee, and specifically to have some additional council insight in dealing with paving and dealing with streetlights. Those are two very important items that are on our residents' minds and that I think could use some additional attention. And the other thing is an environmental sustainability committee to address the various concerns about climate change, to actually, it's my understanding that we are looking at developing a climate action plan, and I think having some community input on the environmental sustainability would properly fit that. So those are the two that we can talk about perhaps later, but that I'm bringing forward currently at this time.
Okay, and on the, I'm going to call it sustainability because I brought that one up unbeknownst, but listening to the city manager is what I didn't bring it forward, and maybe, and city manager, you may have some other comments.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I was actually racking my brain to think about that conversation that we had. With
I
regard,
agreed with you, so you,
yeah,
it was
can
right.
barely remember what I said. But I do remember that Councilmember Marty Medina, mentioned the Heart Committee, and so I can give a brief sort of synopsis of that. It was a committee made up of a number of individuals from the community, with the general focus of making statements or thinking of cultural celebrations. The major work of that committee was to support and brainstorm program around the November United Against Hate Week. One of the challenges with that body is that it was so large and they met so infrequently that scheduling a meeting with various schedules of the body and getting a quorum was a challenge. I actually think the last few times that we tried to convene that meeting, it was challenging. We did assign staff support to it that helped out, but I know this past November, when it was time for United Against Hate Week, given some of the prior challenges with organizing the committee and having staff took over the programming and planning for United Against Hate. And so I think one of the things that committee lacked was a very clear, defined scope, and the infrequentness of the meetings actually, I think, hurt participation, because you had community members that were appointed to this body and they were excited about it, but they met so infrequently you lost the connection. And so part of the reason why the staff report noted that the council may want to consider thinking about the scope of some of these committees is that when you have your strong governance group, you may think about, is there a way to change the structure to keep interest and have that Heart Committee? I will say the other scope area that staff identified but did not act on for that committee was to take a look at the various recognition, I'm blanking on the title, but the cultural and recognition months, like Asian American Heritage Month, LGBTQ Month, and things like that. They're frankly more than 12. And if you look at all of them, there's probably more than 24. And so we thought that having a group in the community that would take a holistic look of all of the sort of recognitions, so the council got a recommendation from the community on which proclamations you wanted to do on a monthly basis, and had that sort of pre-scheduled out may be helpful. But that work was not done, and so know that staff has picked that up as a project now, and we're doing research on all of the various recognitions that cities and governments do, and we can package that and provide that to you for your strong governance workshop, or we can provide that to the mayor. And so we know that that's a body of work that we really need to do, and so right now, because we didn't assign it to the Heart Committee, we're taking it on as an internal research project.
We're good? Yeah, you're great. So I've noticed, like, and I do appreciate the additional culture, the significant attention that the city has been putting on, like, with the library. Is that with the Culture and Arts Commission or committee? That's kind of, or is it, how's that working?
A little bit of both, but a lot of those are frankly library programs. And the city has made a very intentional effort through our library programming to have culturally significant programming and recognize the various cultures that are present in our community.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge and thank the city manager is the one who came up with the Heart Committee title, because if you folks remember, it was brought forward about a particular, right, API, and my thought was we should look at it more globally, the community, and hence the Heart Committee, and then we appointed, I brought forward people in various capacities, and then we appointed that, and then they were meeting. So I think the city manager summarized it very well. Oh, on the sustainability, but I know you were saying you couldn't recall exactly our meeting.
Sure.
For what you do.
I think absolutely, should the council want to appoint a environmental sustainability committee, either as a standing or an ad hoc, you can certainly do that. I do know that there is an existing strategic initiative to develop a climate action plan. The city council has funded that. At this moment, I don't have an update on where that is, but a environmental sustainability committee could cover that and other topics as well. And so at the appropriate time, I think that is one that would very likely engender staff support. And so, again, as per normal, define the scope and take an assessment of what it would take to support that. But it is certainly a body that the city council can establish.
And what the city manager was saying is that they are working on it, and so it's so initial, it's like we're ahead of them before they have information to give us. And so that's what I was saying, okay, all right, I got it. So anyway, just to summarize on that.
It's nice to know that we're thinking about the same thing.
Maybe it's the last name, yeah.
Maybe one of those things.
The surface infrastructure, that is correct. We used to have that. We had various, as you know, ad hoc / standing committees, which they would now need to be. I've gotten lessons, is that they need to be a standing committee. It cannot just be an ad hoc. It would need to be open. And we had open meetings, honestly. Ken Ibarra and I were on that, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Ibarra. So I think that comes up to the council as the scope. And I think that's what would be helpful is just like the city manager said, okay, you're saying technology. That's really broad. You need to kind of define it. And I think that's what they're saying to bring that back with the definition, I would say. Does that make sense?
Right, that for that one, I could define that better but primarily it's paving and streetlights, right? But we're not really here. I'm not here. I'm a little bit out of order here, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
Because we're not going to take action on that, but just to inform my colleagues that that's my interest. But I am interested in being able to move forward, hopefully with support, to have a downtown improvement committee.
Okay. Any comments or from the body? It took me a minute. Sorry. So I'll say one thing is that to me, downtown improvement committee is broad. I don't know what that means. I know there was a committee and it was for grants. It talked about just as a possibility of an improvement with Centennial Plaza. The slide presentation that you presented was 150,000 then. How many climbs? Now we're close to 900, but that was all these modifications. The council was kind of looking at that on one-on-ones, and then it went to the committee. And so it's just so broad, and I know I was bringing up a topic, and it was like, well, but we've gone into town center too. Well, that went beyond the downtown, and what's quantified as downtown? Is it only San Mateo Avenue? So for me personally, it needs to be really defined of, it, what it is. So, just for me personally. Councilmember Medina.
No, and that's all fine. I remember when we first established it, we had a number of points that our focus was going to be in. If we needed to focus, or I believe Councilman Salazar did have some concerns about that committee, and so being able to reduce that and stay more focused is absolutely fine. I can tell you that today I met with the Bay Area Entrepreneurial Center, and they have started a cohort of Skyline students that are interested in working with our downtown merchants, and it could also be expanded to other merchants that pretty much doing the work of our non-functional Chamber of Commerce, of providing that business assistance. And these are business students at Skyline that are being, I believe, compensated with a stipend to assist our businesses. So it's really an amazing start for them, something different that's really focused. So we have the previous, I could pull them out of what our previous, the slide of what we approved that the Downtown Improvement Committee was going to do. And I think that we could modify those if you had a minute, or we can come back and talk about this at another time. It's just that, just wanted to gauge our council's interest in improving our downtown.
Vice Mayor Hamilton, I know you'd gone for the button, or did you want to speak, or?
So all I really wanted to say was just to, because Councilmember Medina is covering it pretty well. I've served on this committee over the past year. I found it very, very rewarding being able to have the mantle of that committee to be able to go out and engage with our downtown merchants, advance the Centennial Plaza project, and kind of focus effort there to move that ahead. And I think this is something that we should continue. Whether or not we call it downtown because there are, if it's going to be have a mandate that extends beyond that, when we talk about the work that they're doing at the VAEC, to kind of try to replace and step in to meet at least some of the functions that our Chamber of Commerce used to do, then maybe it should be a broader mandate than just downtown. But if we were to do that, I would want to do it in a way that makes sure that there is still significant focus downtown, because that is an area of our city that continues to require attention, and is really, we're starting to see a big turnaround down there. And I think it's not just happening on its own. It's because it's something that needs to be nurtured and supported. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments from colleagues? Councilmember Salazar.
And so I think, what happened with that committee is kind of exemplary of a lot of the things that we were talking about here, because that was established, I would say, as an ad hoc, yet it had none of the requirements of an ad hoc, right? Because even though you initially came up with some specific things to accomplish, it quickly grew beyond that, and that was one of the concerns I had. It had no real end date, right? And now we're talking about extending it and adding more things. So it really went into that realm of being more of a standing committee with more of an open, all things downtown sort of mandate. It started pulling in staff resources, and even though those meetings were held, none of those were Brown Act meetings. You guys didn't hold any public meetings that were publicly announced, and so that was, if you're gonna be a standing committee, that would have been a requirement. So there was a lot of gray area, And so, what we're hearing tonight is that, okay, if we bring these back, we have to have those parameters in place. So, I'd be opening to looking at, the 2.0 version or the next version, but in this case, really establishing, if it is ad hoc, then let's talk very specifically about what will be accomplished within that period. And I guess the period would be a year or until we decide to come back and review it. And just, making sure that it's staying on track in that time period. Those are my concerns.
Through the chair, just really fast.
Vice Mayor.
I concur. And I think any of our committees needs to have a clear and defined mandate and stay within those. I'm totally fine with that.
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, and absolutely the same here. I think by having this meeting tonight, we've spent more time than in the 7 years I've been on the council of defining standing committee, ad hoc committee, and we're trying to follow a process. And this could be an ad hoc committee that it sunsetted. It 12 months and it's over. And I'm not trying to make it a standing committee, that it could continue being an ad hoc committee. And defining these different points here, I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yeah, and I'm going to look to staff, but as an example, if on the beautification, there's just 2 electeds, brainstorming, bringing back to the body, it's a very clear define, that's an ad hoc. If it's a continuation, or I'm sorry, let's say it's downtown 2.0, we'll use Councilmember Salazar's. And there's public meetings, and there's bringing people involved, and there's this, that's where Councilmember Salazar, that's more of a standing, because it's ongoing. And there needs to be with the Brown Act, and all of those things, the posting and that. Correct me if I'm off base. And I think that is like, where's the parameter too? Because I think what staff is asking is, let us know so we can assess, because we have no idea what the vision is. We can call it San Bruno litter free. Okay, no one's going to be against that, I would think. We can have an ad hoc, but what are we asking of staff or the resources and the time? And what is our objective, our goals, and where do we see them achieved? And I think that's kind of what the 2.0 was. But am I, city manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I think as a part of this conversation, what I was reminded of was one of the recommendations in the staff report is for all of your committees, be they standing or ad hoc, to really have a defined written scope. And even those that you're discussing appointing tonight, some of them don't have written scopes. And so I would proffer that you can still appoint them, but staff should come back and provide a sample written scope for the city council. And any ones that you adopt in the future should really have a written scope. That comment aside, if we step up on the balcony, one of the things I actually love about San Bruno and the San Bruno City Council is that it's a group of people that really want to do things and improve their community, right? But I think it's also important to note that the City Council, by definition, is the governing body for the city of San Bruno, a municipal corporation. And what you do is really pass policy and set direction for the city of San Bruno. And by definition, your committees are actually advisory to the body, right? They're not really envisioned to be bodies that go out and do things, run programs, meet with businesses, do things. They're, as a body, what you're saying when you set up a committee is you're setting up a subcommittee of the governing board for the city of San Bruno to be advisory to the body as a whole, right? And so typically those bodies are bodies that do research, they meet with staff, but they all really end up with an advisory recommendation that you bring back to the body and say, we've met, we've thought about this, we would like to proffer to our colleagues that we do X. And so I think that that is distinctly different from a body that does things, which is what I think San Bruno and members of the city council really often want to do. And so, as the city attorney mentioned, sort of it really depends on the specific scope I think as a body, you need to really define that. But it's important that anything that any subcommittee does, standing or ad hoc, it really has to be approved and adopted by the council because they're acting on behalf of the governing body for the city of San Bruno.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I initiated the reestablishing the beautification task force, my initial thought was not just for my district, but throughout the community. So what I'm hearing from the previous committee for the downtown improvement, can it be combined with the beautification task force, since your ultimate goal will be to make it as a standing committee, which is also my goal. Right now, we are trying to establish an ad hoc committee to brainstorm the process and, you know, all the activities that will entail or involve in that committee. So would it be possible to basically combine that, you know, the downtown improvement and make it as a beautification task force, because it's not just for the district, but throughout the city, which involves the downtown as well? That would limit, you know, the staff work, you know, and our meetings with different ad hoc committees. Thank you.
Through the chair.
I was watching Councilman Medina because it was like, I wasn't sure. The light wasn't there, but the mouth and body language was telling me.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, the option here is have a committee that has some downtown interaction, which I know that was one of the things that you ran on, was to improve our downtown. And so the mayor already previously said that he was willing to work with you, and then so if you wanted to take that on, that's a lot to do the beautification and the downtown, but whether to have a committee that has that or have no downtown committee, sure, I'm willing to support having a combined effort there. If I wasn't on that committee, I mean, the downtown is in my district, so it would kind of create a little awkwardness. I'm currently working with the merchants downtown just because that's kind of what I do. I'm downtown quite a bit, but I'm open to working with anyone to improve our city. And I know that we need additional attention in our downtown. If we needed to do other things outside of the downtown to support other areas, I'm also fine with that. But I think San Bruno has talked a lot about improving our downtown, and that's one of the areas that our residents have voiced their opinion on surveys from the San Bruno Community Foundation. It's what people want to see, and so I'm open to working on any which way to get something better. So I guess that's kind of my answer. That's why it's kind of awkward, where it's like the San Bruno San Bruno beautification the beautification task force was a little bit on a rogue kind of situation. It kind of just did its own thing, and it had like 3 different events. It had the cleanup and the clean sweep. Then they had awarding people who were fixing up their homes, and those awards. And then for a while, we were cleaning up downtown, actually. So I think it was on one of the Sundays, we were coming down there and cleaning up downtown. So I think it's great that we're going to follow these procedures, and the Downtown Improvement Committee would be an ad hoc. It wouldn't have those public requirement noticing. Vice Mayor and I did have meetings with our businesses and got their input, and were able to share things. And when we were called upon by staff, it wasn't this committee asking to do something. We were asked, hey, you got the Downtown Improvement Committee, we'd like your input, and it's like, okay. And so I think I've spoken enough. I hope that we can find a way, and if we need to define the scope, I'm all more willing to do that. I think our need is specifically there, and that's what our residents want to see from us.
Vice Mayor Hamilton.
So, thank you. So, obviously still in favor of having a defined scope. My concern with combining the current or whatever remit we decide on for a Downtown Improvement Committee, combining that with the Beautification Committee, is that the Beautification Committee or task force has a very defined scope. It's about making the city more beautiful in a whole bunch of different ways, through cleaning it up, through encouraging businesses and even homes to improve their facades, all of those types of things. My concern, if we were to combine it with the Downtown Improvement Committee, that would limit the scope of what we do downtown to just aesthetics. And while aesthetic things downtown are going to absolutely be important, there's also the more business-focused things that we did through this committee in brainstorming with merchants on different types of events or different types of things, trying our best, ultimately failing to get out the paddles and try to get the Chamber of Commerce back to life. We did a lot of work on that over the past year, and ultimately did not succeed. But and now we're seeing that other organizations, like the BAC, might be able to step in and bring resources to fill that in. So my concern, if we were to combine the committees, is that if we were to, go try to support some more Chamber of Commerce-y type of events or programs, that would be like, well, that's not beautification, and it's out of the remit. So that would be my concern with combining them. I think they're both very, very important. I think there is overlap and coordination can take place when things downtown can be beautified. And so I'm not saying that either is bad. I'm just thinking that lumping it all together might be a little unwieldy.
Thank you. I know we've talked a little bit, for me personally, for the downtown, I'd like to have it quantified. And I think only because now we're talking about bringing in through the Skyline College, we're talking about trying to I gotta understand, the chamber, et cetera. So I think it would help then having, I don't want to say blank check in a negative way, but just so there's expectations clearly defined and maybe achievable, and staff then can really formulate like, okay, we have the bandwidth or we don't. So that would be helpful for me going forward, so it's really clearly defined, and I'll use Councilmember Salazar as the 2.0 for myself personally. Vice Mayor.
So would an appropriate next step be for us to agendize at a future meeting a potential remit for the Downtown Improvement Committee, and establishing those parameters, maybe even renaming it if we want the scope to make sure that it's going across all of our businesses and not just downtown, but whatever we want to do, and agendize a session to define that, and then we can decide based on the output of that whether we want to.
To me, yes, because I think the the surface is going to be doing the same thing, right? Because that was going to be more defined, come back for further discussion. I don't know at what time. We would have to ask staff. I know there's the good governance, strong governance, or good strong governance. But that's more like July, I believe. So what do you suggest, City Manager, based on what you're hearing? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think either of those options would work, and it's really up to the City Council. You can say that you will talk about that item when you have your strong governance retreat or study session that's currently on your annual plan for July. You can say that individual council members will write it up and put it on as a council comment for discussion and direction at any point as well, and that can occur at any regular meeting. Or you can establish the committee tonight, and if you do that, I would just recommend that at a later date, a full scope be written up and have that confirmed by the city council.
Understood. Thank you. Councilmember Medina.
So that's absolutely fine. Moving forward, similar to the beautification task force, it's my understanding the ad hoc committee, it's an ad hoc committee, right?
Yes,
They're gonna
just
get
to brainstorm, that's it.
to brainstorm. So I think it'd be fine to brainstorm for this improvement committee for downtown. And I, of course, would like to be on it. And I would be happy to work with any of you to bring it back forward. I'm particularly looking at our new council member because that was one of the things that in our highlights of wanting to do is to improve downtown. So if it was okay with everyone here, that it would be an ad hoc committee of myself and Councilmember Alvarez to bring that back, and kind of following the same script for the beautification task force with defining the scope and being a little bit more focused. And I'm happy to hone in on what our objectives are.
And through the chair,
please.
speaking as the former member of this committee before it sunsetted, I would be happy to relinquish my virtual seat on it, because again, I know that this was a passion of yours during your campaign, and I got a lot of value out of it, and it was a very rewarding experience, and I would encourage you to take it on.
Is there anything that need to be said? I'm trying to read. City Manager,
Sure.
please.
Thank you, Mayor. This may go without saying, but I'll say it nevertheless. It's important to note that the City Council does not have to establish an ad hoc committee for 2 members of the body to meet to discuss any topic and come back with a recommendation for the body, right? And so you certainly have that option, and I recognize that establishing an ad hoc committee has a different level of importance, right? Because you have the body saying, we would like you 2 members to review X and come back. But again, technically, you do not need an ad hoc body for that to occur.
Fair and accurate point. I think in Councilmember Alvarez's point, it was something that she had written up, at least gave kind of some overview, or something about. And then we, as a collective, said, okay, let's take the next step. Let's reestablish it. It is true. The city manager is absolutely correct. 2 people can do that, doesn't need, and then bring it back, put it on the council agenda, which was done before. There was actually a PowerPoint presentation and everything. I remember that. I went and looked at it not too long ago. So, any thoughts, Councilmember Medina?
Sure. I think that just trying to follow the same path with the beautification task force I heard tonight we're setting up an ad hoc committee to bring that back. That didn't have to be an ad hoc committee is what I understand from the city manager, but I think we're trying to define a process, for future committees, that this is one way to do it, is to formally set up an ad hoc committee, or you don't need to set up an ad hoc committee. You could just be, I could be meeting with one other person at this dais, and we could come back. But currently, we're talking about continuing these committees, and so without bringing that up now, then it's kind of like it'd have to have a special meeting to bring that back. So like right now is the opportunity to talk about continuing the current ad hoc committees that sunsetted, and that's kind of why I think it's the appropriate time to continue discussing it and to actually get the feedback from our colleagues if, is this something that they think they could support? Because I don't want to spend too much time on it, and then it's like, well, no, we don't want to do that anymore, but,
Right.
yeah. Because we did go through that and had a study session on creating this with defined roles, and they're right here in front of me, is to improve communication with our business community, build relationships and develop trust, obtain input via surveys and community meetings regarding parking, street closures, events, assist businesses with grant applications, promote businesses via social media, and to provide recommendations to council for action. So then we got asked to assist with the Centennial Plaza and brought that back to council for approval. So that's kind of summarizing where I'm at, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Salazar?
So my understanding is that we cannot create any committees, either standing or ad hoc, without having agendized it. So I don't think that we can come up with a new creation of an ad hoc committee tonight unless it was agendized that way.
I think the technicality might be that the downtown, I don't say if it's an improvement or not, I can't recall. Thank you. Downtown committee would continue. Now, that's because it's on the agenda, because it is listed, it's asked for the continuation, which it does state, to my knowledge, that council can do that. Now, if we're changing it from what it was, which Councilmember Medina just read, which is different, does that matter or not? Or City Attorney, hopefully we didn't confuse you.
So, Mayor Medina, so the agenda description is, receive report and confirm appointment. So we've received a report about the existing committees and confirming appointments to those existing committees. It sounds like what's being discussed here is kind of a change to this downtown committee. I think that we're talking about wanting to really clarify what the scope is. There was some question about whether the committee was more of an ad hoc or more of a subcommittee. So I think that when you come back with all of you're talking about forming other committees and identifying scope, that would be the appropriate time to do so for this downtown committee that's, I think, different than what is currently exists or what existed previously.
Thank you.
Sure. Could I just offer?
Yeah, please.
Councilmember Alvarez, I mean, if we can meet and talk about it downtown, and then we'll bring it back when we have the agenda set up for the beautification task force, and I'll repeat my request to have this committee. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's here. So if that's okay. And
Mrs. Alvarez, Councilmember Alvarez has acknowledged a yes.
Okay.
So the two of you will have coffee probably somewhere on San Mateo Avenue, just a thought.
no, it doesn't have to be downtown,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. We could.
Go ahead.
But we do know if Marty's involved, it will be.
Yeah. So thank you, and I think, thank you, City Attorney. So with that, is there any other discussion on the conduct of business for tonight at this time? City Manager, I was going to say City Attorney.
Hi, Mayor. I think we should leave tonight with clarity on what committees are being
Yes, thank you.
appointed and who is being appointed to those committees. So based on the discussion, what I understand is a ad hoc beautification task force and a ad hoc downtown committee would not be established, but two members of the city council would meet, discuss it, and bring it back to the city council at a later date. The homeless committee, we talked about, council would not reestablish, and staff would meet with the vendors in our normal meeting, but provide a periodic update to council. I think the other two committees that we've talked about tonight are the Cybersecurity Ad Hoc Committee, a committee not yet with a written scope, but a committee with in sort of broad definition, that would be established to meet with staff and receive an update on the city's cybersecurity strategies, programs, systems, and with the intent to bring back any policy recommendations to the city council. And policy, as we know, is sort of general policy, but also budgetary and programmatic as well. And so council can act on that tonight, and we can write up a scope and bring that to council to confirm at a later date. The other is to appoint a recreation and aquatic center construction advisory committee that would continue as a Brown Act body through the duration of the construction, which is scheduled to be complete in 2023. And so those are the two bodies that would continue. The individuals that the mayor is recommending to be appointed to the Cybersecurity Ad Hoc Committee is Councilmember Michael Salazar and Councilmember Tom Hamilton. The two members that the mayor is recommending to be appointed to the Recreation and the RAC, Recreation and Aquatic Construction Advisory Committee would be the mayor himself, Rico Medina, and Councilmember Michael Salazar.
And actually, I didn't think about it until you said it, you made the rack work both ways.
Got it.
So don't even have to change that. So that is, now we've received the report, and we would ask for to confirm that. So we need a motion.
You do need it.
I believe, well, we have to have a motion for everything now, so yes.
Is it fair to make a motion as stated by the city manager in summary of the new committees?
I'll second that.
Motion of Marty Medina, second and Vice Mayor Hamilton. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Aye, yes. So that's approved, and we will move on to the next item, which is council committee report outs. I have some, and I am going to do it because I usually put it off. Are there any from Michael, Mr. Medina, Mr. Hamilton? I think on the committee ones, let me just go through this. On January 26th, attended the Emergency Services Council, which they approved an RFP for a study of the county for evacuations for each jurisdiction and a collaborative process to have a plan should the need arise. The good thing is that it's out of the reserves, so there's no additional cost to which the will be assessed to each city. We okay?
Sorry, Mayor, to interrupt.
That's all right.
I don't think we took public comment on the committee appointment item.
You know, I apologize. I think you might have been, I think you are absolutely correct. So let's stop, pause. Maybe that's why the city attorney stood, was getting my attention. Are there any members in Zoom that would like to speak in regards to that?
There are no virtual hands raised, and we have no speaker cards.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay, I already talked on the plan, but it's not costing the jurisdictions at this time, so I think that was a extremely positive thing. I will tell you on February 2nd, I was sworn in as on the Caltrain JPB, which are one of 3 representatives representing the County of San Mateo, Supervisor Mueller, Mayor G from Redwood City are the other 2. There are 3 members from San Francisco, 3 members from Santa Clara. There's now a governance, and that we took action to appoint a new position, which is a safety manager / inspector. And as you know, what happened in March in our community, there was no position slated in the Caltrains in order for that element, which will report directly to the CEO. History was made because I have been told that I'm the first San Bruno resident and or elected to serve in this capacity since its existence. It has public spots in addition to elected. So I appreciate that. And based with that, yesterday I had a conversation with Supervisor Cindy Chavez from Santa Clara County regarding the Caltrain and the collaboration and cooperation. And it's very interesting to speak to another perspective in another jurisdiction about what they're facing and seeing as well. Also, on January 27th, attended and spoke at the Council of Cities in in South San Francisco, who hosted it, and it was a unique event, which we put on. So it was the League of California Cities, as well as the Council of Cities, and put together and actually had representatives from Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, and had legislators that spoke and answered questions from colleagues in regards to Sacramento and what was occurring in the next session. And so that's it for me. Okay, and seeing none others, we'll go on to comments from council members. Rico Medina. First item, request that the city consider pursuing an age-friendly certificate from the AARP in partnership with the Center for Aging Friendly Excellence Cafe, which has a grant from the San Mateo County to help cities to become age-friendly certified. This is something that was brought up before, prior, and representatives from there met with a couple of staff persons, and at that time, it wasn't feasible as far as the time and the effort that may take, and was asked to kind of wait. So subsequently, a new meeting was held. I attended that, and we met with Ann O'Brien Keegren, and currently we have 11 cities in the county that are certified. South San Francisco is turning their documentation into AARP in March. Brisbane, East Palo Alto, and Hillsborough are in the process now and presenting to Atherton. This does require, and city manager or the director who were in the meeting can speak to it, it's estimated that you need to formulate a group, meaning staff member does need to sit in. They estimate, I would say, about an hour and a half a month, and it's to formulate with folks, maybe from the senior advisory board, a couple here, a couple there, that come together and see what age-friendly and to get certified through AARP. It is a grant fund, it's from the county fund that Supervisor Canepa had originated, and this was his spearheaded thing to get everybody certified. It helps to establish and define what the needs of the community are to get certified from AARP. They also will create a database for us to get all of this data and this information. So, excuse me, I don't want to go into great detail, but certainly want to bring that forward. If there is a majority that are willing to look into that, staff would then say, would bring back it if there's desire to look into that prospect. It is a time crunch. City manager and the team thought maybe the second meeting in March. I know they would prefer the first meeting in March just because of their time constraint, and we were bypassed last time because of not being able to get in at that time, and so if we don't meet that, we will be bypassed, and if the money runs out, we will not have that opportunity. So that's it in a nutshell. Any thoughts or comments from colleagues?
Through the chair.
Councilmember Salazar.
You forget my name. So I would say that anything that's going to incur staff time, it's kind of we've been kind of down this path before, where we come up with random requests throughout the year that take up staff time, and they're not strategic initiatives or not necessarily high priority items. So being that it would take staff time, I think I would be less favorable to doing that. It doesn't sound like there's any real clear benefit to the city to have that designation. I think we're a fantastic city for seniors, and I don't think our seniors are less than vocal about expressing their concerns and bringing those to us. We have a very active senior center, and we do get a lot of that input. So I don't see this as something that would be critical to our operations. So yeah, I think I would say I would defer this until staff does feel that they have the time and resources available to dedicate to it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have an announcement. San Mateo County businesses can apply for,
Councilmember, we're on the topic of the,
oh, sorry.
that's okay. That's all right. Any other comments? Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I apologize. When you looked over at me, I thought you were saying you wanted to go before me. So I was like, go ahead. I did also, I was in contact with Ann Keegren O'Brien, and I know she's working on this. And being that the amount of time was so limited, that I think, and we have staff here, it's an hour and a half a month. And having that recognition for our seniors and I think is beneficial and worth it and not too costly in time. So I think this is something that we should continue, or we should start. Unfortunately, when it was discussed, it didn't come and surface back to the council to perhaps plan a little bit better. But I think this is the opportunity, and I'm in support of this. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
So I'm on the fence because I'm also unclear on what the actual benefit is. So, it basically, if I understand it, getting the certification means that the AARP has certified that we as a city are committed to make our town an age-friendly place to live. Great. What does that do? That's my question. What is that? What I don't know what that does for us besides, we can put another, another seal on the website. Yes, exactly. I don't know what the actual benefit of that is, and I'm happy to be educated about that.
City Manager, I see.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Specific to Vice Mayor Hamilton's question, I'm not able to answer if there are any other benefits outside of just the significance of AARP saying that you're an age-friendly community. With regard to the amount of staff time that this would take, we did have 2 meetings with the group that is furthering this, which I think staff believe was appropriate and potentially something that the community and the senior center users may look positively on. I think the initial challenge is our staff time, and when staff met with them last year, we really articulated that our community services department, that would be the primary department to support this effort, had a number of staffing challenges, but most importantly, they were really working on our recreation and aquatic center. And when we met with them just a few weeks ago, we articulated the same, because really what the department is laser focused on right now is implementing the implementation/business plan for our new recreation and aquatic center that is due to be constructed this year and will be a significant lift. Now, that said, should the city council direct this item, what staff would request is that we go back and sort of fully assess what it would take. That would take staff time to do that. But my understanding is that the group has said approximately in an hour and a half a month, or 2 hours a month. That's really attending of their meetings. Being in the business for a while, what I know is when you gather community groups together to think about programs and services, in this case, services and programs for our senior community, there's additional staff support required. And when we talk to the group, they mentioned data and other things that group would need to sort of fully assess what we do now and make recommendations. And my understanding of the certification program is that you tell AARP things that the city will do, and then you are committed to implement those on a certain time schedule. And so they could be very simple, or they could be elaborate. But you would gather a group of people to think about what those additional things are. And so Again, no comment on the sort of benefit of this, assuming it is a wonderful thing to do. I think when staff met with them initially and secondarily with the mayor, the initial staff comment was, at least right now, the department is really laser focused on the rack. It is potentially something that the city could do later. As the mayor mentioned, the county has funded a entity to go out and further communities in San Mateo County receiving this certification from the AARP, and so it is very possible that if we do not take advantage, we may not have that grant opportunity. I do not at this time know exactly how much that grant is, and so with that, I do know we have our Community Services Director, Ann Matola, here, and if there's anything that you can expound upon, feel free.
Oh, great location for the speaker this evening. But I'll speak into the mic and I'll miss a couple of you. So just to kind of follow up a little bit on what our city manager said, I think part of the concern is really partnering on this in a very meaningful way. The concern is the focus on this, which their process would have to be complete by September. I believe that's what the timeline was. And as you know, that we're really trying to push to make sure that we are focused on the RAC. I think as we were having the conversation with Ann, in our minds, we were thinking, if we could kind of keep it in play and try to do it after the RAC was open, that would be kind of an entirely different ballgame, but they are on a timeline to complete processes by September. And there are some projects that we kind of had to kick down the road, certainly until we have the deputy director, which we are set to launch. And those are things like the art plan for the RAC. And we want to do a real robust push for sponsorship so we can offer scholarship to people, so we don't have any equity of access issues to the programs that we offer at the RAC. And so we're concerned about giving this the attention that it really deserves. And as Javon said, we've been on enough of the committee work where as staff, you are the person that sometimes these entities will need to come to, because we're the touch points to collect data and almost to staff some of the consultants. Whenever there's consultants, there's a lot of staff work beyond kind of what happens at the meeting. So our concern is not being able to really deliver on this and give it the attention that it deserves.
Thank you both. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Salazar.
So I think the vice mayor hit the nail on the head when he asked, what really is the benefit of this? And I know AARP has been very aggressive at marketing things lately. I get at least one of their mailings every month.
You're too young.
Yeah, well, they don't make me feel young. But I've seen a lot more commercials on TV for them, and I know that they're trying to get their brand out. And honestly, I think that an effort like this does more for their marketing ability than it does for our, the benefit of our residents. So I just don't see it being a priority for us at this time.
Any other final comments? Members? Councilmember Medina.
Would it be beneficial to invite the representative and Kieran O'Brien to provide a presentation?
I would say that was the desire before.
Right.
But now it's
Right.
time.
We're
Right.
pushing on the time.
Had we had this thing occurred and the meeting transpired earlier, then yes, and that was her ask to really go into that further. But unfortunately, at the time, we will have to say skip us. But thank you for asking. Any other questions or comments? At this time, I'm seeing that my belief is there is not three to continue this, to request staff to bring it back and pursue this at this time. Am I incorrect in my statement? Sorry. You don't have to be sorry. Okay. Or I guess we should make a motion just so that we're clear, and I guess we're supposed to do that for everything anyway. So I will go ahead and make a motion that the city staff bring back the information to pursue the age-friendly. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Mayor Medina, I was just going to say that I think you need a motion to actually take action or give direction, but if you're just going to move on to the next item, I don't think you need to take a motion for that.
We don't need a vote for it.
No, we don't, but what I'm understanding too is that we almost need a motion for everything now. And so I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, and then if it fails, it fails. And that is to have staff come back for pursuing the consider pursuing the age-friendly certificate from AARP in partnership with the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, known as CAFE, using the grant from the San Mateo County.
Second.
Motion made Medina, seconded Medina. Roll call, please.
Before we go further, any public comment?
Oh, thank you.
There are no hands raised, and we have no speaker cards.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
No.
Vice Mayor Hamilton?
No.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. So 3-2, descending is the vice mayor and Councilmember Salazar for the record, because I know we're told because we have masks. So city manager.
Sure. So just clarification, what the motion is request that the city consider pursuing an age-friendly certificate from AARP in partnership with CAFE, the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, which has a grant through the county to help cities. And so what our intention would be to schedule CAFE for a presentation at the city council on March 14th. And during that time, staff will analyze what we think the work effort that will be required, bring that to the city council on that meeting, and then at that meeting, council will bless, will adopt or not adopt the direction to proceed forward with the initiative. Is that sort of what I understand to be the?
I'm fine with that. I just know that there's a timeline. But you knew that. You were in the meeting, so.
Totally.
Yeah. Was that council's wish to have the presentation or just have staff bring back the information? Did I say that right? Yes, I think so. Councilmember Medina?
So staff did receive the presentation from CARE.
Well, staff, the director and the manager have.
Right.
Yeah.
City manager was suggesting to have them actually come here to present in front of the council to understand its values, its benefits, then have council take an additional action that says, yes, move forward. I believe staff would not be able to say what would be needed, would have to come back at the proceeding. No, that would just, we'd go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can effectuate a presentation by CAFE on the 14th, and at that time, staff will also reach out to other cities that have done this, and I think we can be more informed with the work effort that's needed. And so on the 14th, I think you'll get the presentation and staff work.
Perfect. All right, everybody, okay. Let's move on to the next item. This is just an acknowledgement of the collaborative nature of the school safety training event that was held between the San Bruno Park School District, the San Bruno Fire Department, and the San Bruno Police Department. So I went and spoke along with a trustee as they started this, and that was over at Allen School. There was no students in session for that day. They all gathered, the whole faculty of everybody for the San Bruno Park School District. And I wanted to acknowledge those entities for their commitment to the safety of the students and the staff of the San Bruno Park School District. The collaboration that was witnessed last month at the School Safety Day was commendable. The school district staff was trained on CPR and AED, use of Narcan administration, stop the bleed techniques, as well as the Big Five program and an active shooter scenario. It is all a collaboration amongst all the agencies that will enhance the safety of the students and community. And it's not the fun things you want to talk about and deal with, but it's essential and it's critical. And I want to thank the city manager, and I want to thank the superintendent of the San Bruno Park School District, Mr. Duffy, who talked, thought of this, took it over to our chiefs, Johansson and DeLay, and their team and their staff. And when I spoke there, the enthusiasm, honestly, that I felt, and everybody and the faculty, it was just a very good feeling. And my feedback that I've heard from some is that some of the faculty who have taught or been a part of the educational system felt this was one of their better training days and sessions that they had. And again, I just can't tell you that I thought it was nice to have your representative from the council, representative from the school board, public safety, a city collaboration, and I would encourage that this maybe become an annual activity, because obviously there's new folks that come in, people retire, what have you. And I think it was very valuable and worth it for our safety of our youth and to give confidence to our teaching and administrative professionals to have to operate in those scenarios, which we read too much about, we hope never happens, but in the reality of the items that they were training on, I think was critical, and I want to give my kudos to the team and the public safety personnel and the school district. Is there anything that anybody wants to say on that topic? Again, it was just more of acknowledgement, but I thought it was worth having it there and known. Is there anybody else, as I pull up my notes, that has anything that they want on council comments? Councilmember Alvarez. Thank you. I do. Is there any is there any public comment?
There are no virtual hands raised, and there are no speaker cards.
And then we're going to go on to Councilmember Marty Medina, then we'll go to Councilmember Alvarez, and I'll find my notes. This is his item, which is request to fly the Ukrainian flag at City Hall, which has happened before, twice, in observance of the quote-unquote anniversary of the 1 year. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is 2023, and you have a major earthquake, and people are risking their lives to try to save somebody in the rubble. And at the same time, there's countries at war launching missiles, trying to kill each other. And it's just an amazing, it's really tragic. Other council members have brought this forward, being that it's approaching the 1 year anniversary. I think it would be appropriate to fly the Ukrainian flag. And I have received a copy of the motion that is necessary, but if I think everybody got a copy of it. I didn't write it, but I think it's absolutely appropriate that I make a motion that the San Bruno City Council adopt the attached resolution to authorize temporary display of the Ukrainian flag to express solidarity with Ukraine in observance of the 1 year anniversary of their war to defend their country from Russian aggression. I recommend that the flag be flown at San Bruno City Hall for a period of 30 days, beginning on February 24th through March 25th, 2023.
I will second pending comment from colleagues and the public.
Very good. Any other, Councilmember Salazar?
Okay, so I definitely support what's being proposed, but I have an issue with us issuing a resolution from the dais. And I know that staff did work on that, but it wasn't part of the packet, and the public didn't have a chance to see it. And so can we take the action without calling it a resolution?
Mayor Medina and Councilmember Salazar, the agenda item does specify that you're going to consider a request to fly the Ukrainian flag. The reason that we have a resolution is because of the city council policy. So the resolution is just one way to take that action. Could be by minute motion too, if it wasn't for the council policy. I don't think it needs to specify a resolution on here for this type of action where you're just considering the request to fly the flag in a way that's compliant with your policy.
Right, and yeah, I don't think this is going to be a controversial thing, but I think as a practice, I would prefer that we not introduce resolutions that weren't previously posted for people to view. So just, I mean, this one is fine, I'm okay with moving forward with it, but.
Totally fair. If, one clarification.
City manager.
A resolution is included in the packet, but it has blanks. And so the reason why staff developed the resolution and included it in the packet is because per the council policy, the council needs to adopt a resolution, and we didn't want to let the bureaucracy of a council member asking for the flag to be flown and then staff coming back with a resolution later. And so staff developed a template resolution that had blanks and put that in the packet, and then suggested language for the motion to fill in those blanks. But totally understand, I think the action can be taken as per the city attorney statement. But that is why we took the action this time of including a template resolution in the packet.
Okay, I didn't see that in the packet, so my apologies. All right, so we can proceed.
Okay. No other comments from us? Any members of the public?
No, there are no virtual hands raised, and there are no speaker cards.
So we have a motion on the floor from Councilmember Medina, seconded by Vice Mayor Hamilton. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Anything else? Councilmember Medina.
Yes, on a much more positive note, for those that don't know, there is flag football currently at Cappuccino High School on Sundays. It's the first year that flag football has been on the new Cappuccino field. There are hundreds of youngsters playing flag football. It's kind of like the new thing. So on Sundays, I encourage anyone to attend. It's free. Parking's a little tight, but it's a big event. And I also wanted to remind everybody it's the beginning of baseball season too in San Bruno, and it's really dear to everyone's heart as well as softball. So it's that time of season. I just wanted to wish everyone the very best in their leagues this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one announcement to make. San Mateo County businesses can apply for disaster assistance. The SBA offers disaster assistance in the form of low-interest loans to businesses, homeowners, and renters located in the regions affected by the declared disasters. SBA also provides eligible small businesses with working capital to help overcome the economic injury of a declared disaster. If your business has been impacted by the severe winter storms and you're interested and want to know about applying for a disaster relief loan, reach out to the San Mateo SBDC to work on one-on-one with a business advisor, or you can send me an email at salvarez@sanbruno.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. I found my notes so very quickly. January 26th, the vice mayor and I attended a virtual meeting with the city manager, the assistant city manager, and a representative from the CPUC, and introduced himself and went over the various things. The city manager also went over a list of items to bring to the attention and areas of interest that are of concern to the city. So I thank you for that. On January 31st, I attended a Zoom meeting with Assembly Member Pappen and Ting staff member, along with the city manager, and it was detailed as far as what was happening in San Bruno, the concerns and the interests of our community. And also, I think some of us attended the lunar celebration that was held here at the Senior Center, the Year of the Rabbit, and I want to thank the team and the staff. They did a great job. They had about 134 persons that attended, Also stopped by and attended the community open house for the Tanforan project, and is very interested to see some of the comments and the notations and hear some of the stories of the mall's history and what have you. So I think that was very admirable, and I want to thank the staff for everything that they did with the technical difficulties and making it work and making it happen. Thank you, as always. And on Thursday, February 16th, there will be a Java with Josh at 504 San Bruno Avenue at 9:30 a.m. That he is hosting, and that's right across the street from St. Bruno's Church. So parking is available at the church itself, since parking can be difficult at times. And with that, I have nothing else. What we do want to do is we are going to adjourn this meeting to the next regular scheduled meeting, which will be held on February 28th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. But before we go back, we're going to adjourn this regular scheduled meeting, call it adjourned. We're going to go back to the conduct of business, which was a appoint an ad hoc committee of the city council to interview executive recruiters or directed staff to select. But I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess, and then we will come back and do that. So at this time, we will be in recess for 5 minutes, and please, council, if you can come back at that time. Thank you. Okay, we're back from recess. Thank you very much for everybody's patience. There we go. Okay. I want to make it clear that we did adjourn the regular scheduled meeting, and we are now going back to the San Bruno City Council special meeting that started at 5:30, but due to technical difficulties, we weren't able to start until very late, so therefore, we held an item over and are bringing that back forward. So that was on the San Bruno City Council special meeting, and that was left as item number 4 under conduct of business.
Appoint an ad hoc committee of the city council to interview executive recruiters or direct staff to select.
City manager.
Good evening, Javon Grogan, City Manager, to the mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. We're here tonight to discuss item 4A, appoint an ad hoc committee of the city council to interview executive recruiters or direct staff to select the executive recruiter. This item is necessitated by the fact that on September 7th, I was appointed to be the future city manager of the city of Santa Clara. I subsequently have provided notice, and my last day in this wonderful city will be April 14th. And so very much a bittersweet thing. My time here in San Bruno has been absolutely wonderful. And at the appropriate time, I will be prepared to say concluding remarks, but that is not what tonight's item is for. Tonight's item is really to prepare the city council and support the city council for the transition. And so last week, the city council did convene a closed session to talk about public employee appointment for the city manager, both discussing an interim and a potential permanent city manager. However, there are at least two items that will need to be taken in public session. One of those is a determination on the process you would like to use to select the executive recruiter. And the other item is setting the salary schedule for the city manager's position that will happen at a later date. And so on the screen before you, you have two options, and there is a third on the next slide that we will go through. And so option number one, and we'll run through these, is for the city council to appoint a committee, a ad hoc committee, to interview and recommend a firm, a executive recruitment firm. And so we have a number of sample dates. Today, the city council could take the action to appoint an ad hoc committee of 2 members of the city council to interview firms. We believe that those interviews can be conducted between September 17th and September 23rd. As the city council is aware, the city recently did a RFP for executive recruiters. We have a number of recruiters on an eligibility list. We have outreach to those recruitment firms and have confirmed those that are available. And so we do believe we will have at least 5, maybe 6 firms for the city council or staff to choose from. But under option 1, we believe that the review and interview of the proposals can occur between September 17th and the 23rd, and then the city council would then select the firm either on the 28th or March 14th. I think that it would be everyone's intention to have that selection occur on the 28th as possible, but we put the 14th just in case there were scheduling conflicts or some other availability concerns. Option 2 would be the staff selects the recruitment firm, and so tonight at February 14th, Valentine's Day, the council could direct that staff interview and select the firm. Staff would then review the proposals and interview the firms, and we believe we can do that between, we've already reviewed a few, but between the 13th and the 23rd. And then we would also be able to immediately enter into contract with the selected firm with the caveat that if one of the firms require that we come back to the city council, we would need to do so and we would intend to do that on February 28th. The city manager has a signature limit of $75,000, and so there are some of these firms that we have used twice this year, and if one of those were selected, that would take us over the $75,000 mark. A executive recruitment typically costs somewhere between $25,000 to $30,000 to $35,000 to $40,000, and so we're confirming through the proposals the final cost, but know that there might be an option for a 2A where we come back to the city council. And the city council could also direct that as well. Option 3 would be if the entire city council decides to interview and select the firm. And so the time frame that we put on that is that you would make that decision today. We believe that those interviews, because they will need to be publicly noticed meetings and available for the public to attend, we believe that we might need a little bit more time to put those together, and so we put a time frame for that process on February 17th to March 7th, with ideally, if possible, coming to the council on the 28th for direction, but probably more likely in this scenario on March 14th. And so those are the 3 options that are available to the council. Staff is here to support you. I'm also here tonight with Cora Dino, our HR director. That concludes the staff report, and turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, you've heard that. Is there any questions? At this point, let's go questions, comments, if we don't mind, please. Vice Mayor?
I would like to make a case for option 2. Through this, first of all, I mean, obviously we want to acknowledge the first time we've been discussing the city manager's departure here in a meeting. So just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge this momentous event. It is absolutely bittersweet, but we have to move on. And I want to make a case for option 2. This is just for selecting the firm that's going to go out and find our candidates. And I have confidence that staff can do that. And it would be a much more expeditious process if we were to do that. Obviously, the most important part of this process will be us interviewing the candidates, and we're going to be spending a lot of time doing that over the next several months to find the right next city manager for San Bruno. I think the firm itself, which firm we select, I don't think that we necessarily either 2 of us or 5 of us would necessarily have the. I don't know what we would be bringing to the table in choosing the right ones when staff already has experience with working with firms for all the various executive recruitments that we've had to do for other senior positions. So I am in support of option 2 for those reasons.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question? And then we'll go right to you, Mr. Salazar. To staff, there are dates listed here. Can this not be done also awarding the firm at a special city council meeting?
Yes, it can be done at a special city council meeting.
Thank you. Just in case, I'm just trying to think of time element, and if the 5 of us and it's something, just that, anyway. Councilmember Salazar, thank you for allowing me to.
I was going to concur with the vice mayor. I don't know that we would bring a lot of value to the process, and if we can get this moving quickly, and the list of potential companies that I saw were definitely a list of competent and well-known companies, so I don't know that we can make a bad decision anyway, so I'm in favor of just letting staff move forward.
Any other comments or questions from colleagues? Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, and thank you, City Manager Grogan, for your service. Going forward, I between the 2 options, and thank you for those comments, for my colleagues, making sure that this happens sooner than later That's the first thing, that if it could make these two options, if they could be pretty much at the same time, so that's 2 weeks of not having a contract to move forward with the recruitment. That's my main issue with not really supporting option one. But I think if there was interest from 2 council members to be on that committee to hear the interviews, I think that is something that I would be in support of. So normally we let the mayor and the vice mayor kind of handle the negotiations and dealings with hiring those employees that we do hire. But I'm open to, if there was somebody on the council that was that interested in being on that, that I also see the benefit of that person being able to do so, being 2 people. So just kind of, I'm open. I'm not 100% decided on which way to go here, provided that we do it quickly in making this selection. The important part is interviewing the candidates for the city manager. Thank you.
Was there, I'm not reading this one well, so usually I've got it down. The attorney?
Mayor Medina and Councilmember Medina, I guess I was looking for clarification about the direction that Councilmember Medina was talking about or exploring. Are you looking to have city council members sit with staff as they interview? I think as I understand, there's 2 distinct options. One is staff will select the firm. The other is the city council will select the firm. If the city council selects the firm, there will be an ad hoc group to kind of help move that process along before the city council does so.
Sure, thank you. And my experience on the council is when this came up, that we would normally have the mayor and the vice mayor be the ad hoc committee in doing negotiations. But if I want to be able to allow an ad hoc committee to participate, but I got to hear from a couple more colleagues to find out if that's the way we want to go. I'm open to it.
Yeah, I think what Councilmember Medina is saying, if option 2 were selected, is there an opportunity for a member or 2 members to also be together and listen and hear, though option 2 has been selected, which means staff makes that selection? Am I articulating that right?
So
Maybe not.
enabling the council for option 1, if 2 wanted to be there, if 2 of us wanted to sit down and actually do that, it's fine, provided that we can meet the quicker time commitment, not wait till March 14th to make the selection. I don't see it yet. I believe that staff can handle that, but if 2 on our council wanted to participate in that, then I think they should be able to participate in that.
Okay. City manager?
Sure.
Please.
Thank you. I think it's actually to talk about this from maybe not even use this as an example. So the decision is essentially, does the city council select or does staff select? The challenge with having a subcommittee of the city council interview candidates with staff is that staff has to make the decision and they can't be influenced by a subset of the city council in that interview process. So you as per the Brown Act, right, if a less than a majority of council cannot direct staff. And so you're potentially causing a challenge by having a committee of council in with staff. And so it's really a dichotomous choice.
Yeah, I would concur with the city man. I'm thinking back to my city days. And if I had 2 members of the city council and staff was meeting, I know, depends who it was maybe, but I might be influenced a little bit. So just to be fair, but I do understand your point. So even if, I think what I was hearing you say, Councilmember, is that if you do option 1, you want it expedited. You want to see it hit that 28th day. That's why I was asking about the special meeting rather than going to the March 14th, that can be done quicker, which staff has said, yes, you can call a special meeting. You don't need to wait till the 14th. as an example. Was there, did I make, okay.
Yes,
Councilmember Alvarez.
I have a few questions on option 2. Can you clarify only if selected firms' contract requires city council approval?
Yes.
Is that the contract, the firm, if they require the city or the staff that, we need to approve it, or the council need to approve it?
Sure, thank you. So the city already has a list of qualified executive recruiters via our prior solicitation process. And as per our existing purchasing policy, the city has the ability to enter into contracts with any of those firms as long as the totality of costs that we spend with those firms in a fiscal year is not over $75,000. And so I believe on that list, there is one firm that we have used twice this year, and using them a third time will require us to come to the city council. And so if we pick any of the other firms, it will not, because we will not go over the $75,000 threshold. And so I want to be clear, just because that in staff's analysis, I don't think that would exclude the staff from picking them if they're the most qualified. But I think it is a appropriate fact that if a firm that essentially has enough contracting financial capacity, the city can execute on that contract immediately without needing to schedule a special or wait to a regular meeting.
Thank you. My second question was, should we choose option 1? We're voting for, or choosing the 2 ad hoc committee members?
Yes, it is envisioned
Tonight?
that if the city council chooses option 1, you would appoint that ad hoc committee tonight. 2 members of the city council and staff will work expeditiously with schedules to identify the availability of those 2 council members, as well as the 4 or 5 firms that have replied back saying they have availability and have provided the city a detailed cost and schedule.
Thank you.
If option 1 were selected, 2 members of the council would still have staff support. They'd be there helping guide the process, giving their expertise and, professional input.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, any other, let's see if there's any members of the public that wish to speak on this topic.
There are no virtual hands raised, and we have no speaker cards.
Thank you. So back to council for, I can tell you, I do want if option 1 was selected, which I'm open to either, but I would want it done quicker, as Councilmember Medina definitely said. Special meeting, I think it's important enough, and I think we can, maybe it could be done in room 115 at City Hall, so we don't have, if it was a special meeting, so we don't have to have the extra setup, thank you, and resources. But staff will have to get back at that. I don't want to put them on the spot. And so, unless, city manager, do you want to or no? No, you don't have to say anything.
Well, really quickly, I was just having a chat with the city attorney. If the council chooses option 1, totally understand, and we would attempt to accomplish having the council convene in a public meeting, confirming with the city attorney if we have the ability to meet totally remotely, which we would, per state law, if that meeting happens before February 28th. The challenge is that we'd want to just make it clear, because I think the city council's policies and procedures calls for all of your special meetings to be hybrid, being in person and on Zoom. And so if you select option 1, I think just provide clear direction to staff that you're okay with the special meeting, if it's necessary, to be fully remote. But again, that would have to occur before the ability to do that sunsets on February 28th.
I see what you're saying. Yes, it's not for interviewing the recruiters, it's to actually make a decision if it were to come back, when it comes back to council. Got you. Yes, and you're correct. It has to be done by the end of the month. Thank you. Any other final questions or comments? Councilmember Salazar.
One final comment. So, I've been, in my time on the council, I've been here for 2 executive recruitments, and in both cases, staff made the decision on picking a recruiter, and the process went well. And, I really want to caution us against wanting to be so involved that we're actually bogging down the process. And so, I'm going to be in favor of just letting staff run with this, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity for us to chime in on a candidate ultimately.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor Hamilton.
Yeah, I concur with Councilmember Salazar. I don't see what value any of the five of us would add to the selection of the firm over having staff do so. So I would like to make a motion that we proceed with option 2.
I'll second. Second.
Motion made by Hamilton, Vice Mayor, seconded by Salazar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Marty Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hamilton,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Unanimous. Option 2. City Manager, anything else? So with that, that will conclude what we went back to on this special meeting. And with that, we will now adjourn the special city council meeting and adjourn it to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on February the 28th, 2023 at 7 o'clock right here at the Senior Center. Happy Valentine's Day. Have a good night and have a good rest of the week. Meeting adjourned.
All right.